You know, I consider myself a reasonable person, generally. I don't think my standards are that high. I mean, I love movies, and more often than not, I can usually find some good in even the worst films I watch. But once in a while, a film comes out that just is so bad that it actually hurts physically. Like you walk out of the theater in literal physical pain and discomfort. Fantastic Four is one of those films.
Fantastic Four is the fourth live-action film adaptation of the long-running Marvel comic book series. If you're not familiar with these characters, here's a quick rundown. It's about 4 individuals who, while aboard a spacecraft, are exposed to cosmic radiation, which gives each of them superpowers. There's the leader, Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic, a brilliant scientist with the power to stretch his limbs, Sue Storm, aka the Invisible Woman, with the power to turn invisible and create force fields. Then there's Johnny Storm, aka the Human Torch, who can fly and cover himself in flames. And finally, Ben Grimm, aka the Thing, who becomes a giant rock monster.
As I've already mentioned, the Fantastic Four has already been adapted to live-action film 3 times before this. Unfortunately, each film in the series has pretty much sucked.
The first was released in 1994, a low-budget film produced by B-movie legend Roger Corman. The movie was a shoddily made and complete mess of a film, made solely to settle a rights dispute and not even intended for release. I will say this though, it at least has some entertainment value, in a so-bad-it's-good kind of way. The same kind of enjoyable romp that would fit nicely in the lineup of Mystery Science Theater 3000. The following 2, Fantastic Four and Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer, released in 2005 and 2007, were given respectable budgets but failed to impress. While I actually did appreciate their lighthearted tone and thought that Chris Evans and Michael Chilkis were both really well cast, the stories were kind of generic, the villains uninspired, the direction was shoddy, and Ian Groford and Jessica Alba were horribly miscast.
But I will say this much, this most recent debacle makes those 3 previous films look like masterpieces by comparison.
The most recent iteration of the classic property is directed by Josh Trank, the filmmaker behind 2012's pretty good movie Chronicle, and takes more inspiration from the Ultimate Fantastic Four series, where, among other things, the team acquires their powers by teleporting to another dimension, the characters are reimagined as college students, and most of the colorful, or for lack of a better word, more fantastical elements of the series are jettisoned in favor of a more dark, gritty, and grounded aesthetic. Because that hasn't gotten old. Of course, none of that would be an automatic deal breaker. Sure, I think the Ultimate series pales in comparison to its classic counterpart, but then again, good movies have been made out of dubious source material before. As for the dark and gritty tone, while it wasn't my first choice, if they had a solid story, compelling characters, and a director who had something that resembled a clue, it might have worked. But outside of a few misguided attempts to bring Cronenberg-style body horror to a PG-13 film, seriously, I love Cronenberg movies, but there's a reason they don't usually exist outside of an R rating. It all reeks of half-assed, uninspired attempts to redo the Nolan Batman aesthetic without knowing what made those films work. The film script is a convoluted mess that appears to have been the victim of last-minute studio-mandated cuts, reshoots, and just plain misguided ideas. The characters are mostly unlikable douchebags void of anything that resembles personality. The story itself is full of numerous story arcs that feel either rushed, incomplete, or cut for time. The dialogue is incredibly flat, and about 90% of the movie is just pure exposition. With a finale so rushed and cobbled together, I left thinking, what the hell just happened?
I think they were trying to make some kind of statement on how the government gets over-involved in scientific affairs, or, I don't know, how they continuously weaponize things that weren't meant for war. But I don't know, this whole movie, nothing really makes much sense.
The actors do the film absolutely no favors whatsoever either. But honestly, with the script this bad and the apparent production troubles, it's hard to imagine anyone being able to pull something workable out of this mess. None of the actors have any kind of chemistry, and the constant look on their faces reeks of, get me the hell out of here, this movie is going to blow. There are times it looks like Miles Teller was really straining to find some depth in his character and deliver something passable, but calling his performance anything but awful would be a huge stretch. Kate Mara as Sue Storm, the only notable female character in the movie, is barely given a damn thing to do, so it goes without saying that her performance is bland and vacant. Jamie Bell as The Thing barely plays a role in the movie, so there's not much to say about him. And then there's Michael B. Jordan as Johnny Storm, a genuinely great actor with already some great performances behind him. I was really hoping to see him deliver in this, partially because he's a real deal actor, and because I was looking forward to giving the finger to all the racist assholes who have been bitching and moaning this last year over the fact that the Human Torch is being played by a black actor. But sadly, even he couldn't rise above this awful script and ends up just as empty and vacant as the others.
You guys sure you're in the best shape to be doing this? Yeah. We're good.
And then there's Toby Kebbell as Victor Von Doom.
Alright, listen up. All the flaws I've discussed in this film up until now are things that annoy or irritate me, but usually wouldn't get me that upset. But there's one thing about this film, and the 3 previous films for that matter, that really pisses me off. And that's the treatment that the film's major villain, Victor Von Doom, aka Dr. Doom, has received. In short, he is one of the greatest comic book villains of all time. He's a mad scientist, a dictator, sometimes even something of a sorcerer or wizard. He's a character ripe with possibilities for a film adaptation. He could easily be one of the greatest movie villains of all time. And no filmmaker, no studio has ever done a damn thing with this character. Seriously, 20th Century Fox, you own the film rights to one of the greatest comic book villains of all time. You are sitting on a gold mine, and you have not done a damn thing with it!
And as much as I genuinely hated his portrayal in the last 2 films, in this one, it's like director Josh Trank said, yeah, he was pretty bad in the last 2 films, but I think we can do even worse. The character's design manages to be 3 parts ugly, boring, and uninspired. I actually think this scene was supposed to be a big reveal, but I didn't put a spoiler warning up because this movie, that's why. He barely plays a role in this film, except for a few scenes in the first act with some kind of half-assed arc about him being bitter about not receiving enough credit for his genius, or something like that, only for him to drop off for the second act and then make a surprise return for the finale where he somehow becomes a supervillain with world domination plans because, I don't know, this movie barely explains anything else. Why would that be any different? And to top it off, the film just looks cheap as hell. Between setting most of the film in a money-saving underground bunker, CGI that looked like it was accomplished on a $5 effects budget, and a startling lack of action in the superhero action film.
Oh yeah, I'm not joking about that. Aside from a few brief fight scenes and the rushed finale, there's barely anything in this film that resembles action.
Again, if this film had anything else to offer, interesting themes, creative storylines, deep characters, or hell, even a sense of humor, then yeah, it might have been okay. Even the last 2 films at least tried to do something. I mean, they had a few semi-decent action scenes, a few attempts at humor, and a handful of scenes that at least had something that kinda resembled character development. I mean, yeah, they didn't do any of that well, but hell, but the fact that they at least tried is more than I can say about this piece of Seriously, I would rather marathon all 3 of the previous Fantastic Four films than watch 5 minutes of this piece of crap. Even worse, I would rather watch Green Lantern. I would rather watch the 2003 Daredevil movie. I'd rather watch both Ghost Rider movies. I'd rather watch Elektra. I'd rather watch X-Men Origins Wolverine. I'd rather watch Jonah Hex. I'd rather watch Superman 4. I would rather watch Catwoman. Okay, I won't go quite that far. But you know what? I would rather watch Batman and Robin on repeat than 5 minutes of Fantastic Four. Oh yeah, I went there. I give Fantastic Four 1 out of 5.
What is coming? Doom.
Alright, thanks for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed watching me go on a huge rant against what's probably going to be the worst film of the year. I've also got links to some of my previous videos where I'm in a much better mood. And subscribe and tune in next Monday where hopefully I get to review a good movie. See you next time.